Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm sure you've seen the title and can probably guess, but we're going to be discussing some very messy webtoons. Obviously, as per the title, expect that these stories are going to be a little bit controversial, but they're the ones that, despite that, I just can't put down. I will try to keep spoilers to a minimum and focus the majority of the discussion on the overall themes within each story, but just know some mild spoilers probably will pop up. Without further ado, let's get into it. First up, Depths of Malice. In a nutshell, this story is about a girl with a terminal illness who seeks out a sorcerer to swap bodies with a noblewoman and essentially steal their destiny. The premise alone already sets the tone for what type of story this is going to be. This one is really good if you want a true villainous story, because there are so many occasions where I'm promised a villainess, but she's just misunderstood, or she isekai'd into the body of a villainess, but she herself is actually innocent of all the crimes, yada yada yada. And while I appreciate those stories, sometimes I just want a toxic female lead. Like, we get so many twisted and messed up male leads. I just want to see the female lead be the problem and embrace it. And that's pretty much what you're going to get with this one. In the first handful of chapters, you read it and you're like, oh, she's crazy. Oh, she okay. Something about the smiling over the corpse. It was something about the mocking self-harm ideation. It was something about the throwing yourself down the stairs to accuse someone of violence. Now that one is an asterisk because I mean there were reasons. There were reasons. But the point is, if you want a true disturbed actual villainess, this is the story for you. So the next one is a series that it almost feels like is the internet's most hated webtoon, because there was a while in, like, if you go on Reddit and the subreddits and stuff like that, people were dragging this series like 3 times a day. There were consistently posts. There's been YouTube, takedowns, all this stuff about this series because it triggers people so bad. And if you haven't guessed already, it's Cry or Better Yet Beg. Now this one, I'm obsessed. This story is about a girl who was orphaned very young and kind of passed along from family member to family member, ending up in not the best living situations. She doesn't really feel like she fits in or belongs anywhere. And eventually, she ends up getting sent to live with her uncle, who works on the Duke's estate. And so she arrives there when she's around 11, 12 years old, and she grows up there and she ends up working on the estate herself. And that's where she meets the male lead, and chaos ensues. The reason that I think this story is very unique is because I feel like in a lot of situations, when a character has a very troubling family life and background, they start out at rock bottom and it's only uphill from there. They find love, they find community, and then they're happy ever after right off into the sunset. This story, however, kind of goes in waves. She starts out very low, having feelings of abandonment, household conflict. She's being shifted and pawned off in all these situations. And she finally finds peace with her uncle and family and community and all of these things that are so fulfilling, to a point where she's literally at a certain point living her best life. Like, she's enjoying nature, she's making friends, she's going to school. It's all uphill. And then when she meets the love interest, she goes from this huge incline to like a complete crash. And then from there, it's just roller coaster all the way through. I actually think, from a writing and storytelling perspective, I actually found that type of storytelling to be very, very interesting. I disagree with the notion that a character doing bad things means that the writing is bad or the story is bad. I do think this gets a lot of unfair hate because of the themes, but a lot of the criticism I find to be very moralizing versus a deep dive into the actual storytelling. It's more realistic to like the ebb and flow of life. There's high points and low points, and it's not necessarily like, you have a bad childhood, but then you find the one and you just ride off into the sunset. I find the story to be pretty interesting. I'm clearly not the only one, because even the people who hate the story read every chapter and they read the novel and they're engaging in it all the time. All in all, if you can, decipher fiction from reality, you'll be fine. If you can't, you might crash out. The next series is Still Under Silk. Now, this one had me captivated. The basic premise is that the protagonist had his family slaughtered by the male lead, and so he's seeking revenge. And to do this, he's trying to get in the male lead's good graces. Through doing that and getting close to him, he becomes like essentially his concubine. And he pretends to have this romantic relationship, all the while plotting to annihilate the male lead. And this one is hard because you, as the reader, know something's off. The male lead knows something's off. Obviously, the protagonist knows something's off, but both of the characters get so enthralled in the romance that they kind of want to believe it's real and we want to believe it's real. So when the actual day comes to make the attempt, all hell breaks loose. And when I say all hell breaks loose, it's bad. It's bad.
It is illegal. It is inappropriate. It is really violent. I better warn my school about that.
It's toxic. It's terrible. But then it's like, I mean, you did try to kill him. Like, it's wrong, but like, you did poison him. And the way that the story is told, you can know intrinsically what is about to occur and still feel shocked. I'm reading it and like the way that the story is told, I feel like I'm them. Like I feel like my illusions were shattered, everybody's illusions were shattered. On to the next, Averted Gaze. Now, Averted Gaze is a series where I just saw the cover alone and immediately click. And they say, don't judge books by the cover. If we weren't meant to judge books by the cover, at least a little, books wouldn't have covers. Cover art drew me in, and I wasn't prepared. Like, I feel like I ran in and I didn't like assess myself appropriately because this story goes deep. The major theme of the story is the female protagonist has a brother who has been showing some very, very dark and twisted behavioral tendencies, and she's trying to alert the family, but they continuously dismiss her and gaslight her because she is the scapegoat of the family and the brother is the golden child. Essentially, it just continues to unravel into a very, very chaotic breaking point. This is one of the only ones on the list that is not a romance. Thankfully, not a romance. I mean, there's romance in it, but that's not the focal point. This one is mostly about toxic family dynamics and how those things manifest and perpetuate across generations. They touched on everything from generational curses, narcissistic parenting, the impact that having a mentally ill family member has on the collective family. Even touched on how like a desire to save face culturally and socially makes people ignore permeating issues within the household. Overall, I'd say I wasn't expecting what I got, but by the time that I was actually in the throes of reading it, I couldn't put it down. On to the next, Lost in the Cloud. Now, Lost in the Cloud is one of my all time favorite BL series. And the basic premise is that the protagonist has a bit of a crush on a classmate. And instead of this manifesting in a healthy, positive light, it manifests more in an obsessive way. And he starts taking a bunch of pictures of his crush without his crush's knowledge and saves them into a cloud folder. Now, the problem with this is someone finds that cloud folder, and that's the male lead who chooses to blackmail him, and chaos ensues. This story is so good. Like, of course, it starts off with a very out there and outlandish premise, but they actually go deep into each of the characters and their backgrounds and how they kind of ended up where they're at. And because of the way that they met, the male lead and the protagonist don't have the best relationship with each other, and they're pretty much very hostile with one another. I'd say they're pretty much on equal footing in terms of levels of toxicity because they both have very intense issues. It comes head to head on multiple occasions. But what I like about this series is they focus on character and character development and relationships between not just the love interest, but friendship, family, community, all of these things. So overall, I'm completely obsessed with this series. Both of them are toxic as hell. Both of them have a whole bunch of issues, but that's what makes the story great. So the next one is the problematic prince. Now, it's in the title. The male lead is problematic, but the essence of this story is the main female lead is from a small rural town, and her father, who she's estranged from, lives in the city. So she goes to live with her father and is coming into a marriageable age. So he essentially is trying to set her up to be a bride, and their family has financial issues, so he's trying to basically use her as a cash cow. Now, this is one that I just, every single chapter release of this webtoon, I'm the first one to unlock it. Like, I just need to know what's gonna happen next. The one thing that I really, really like about this story in particular is the world building, because beyond just the main couple, I love that they have like this kind of tabloid atmosphere going on beyond just the regular trials and tribulations of like being a couple. They also have the oversight and obsessiveness of the people and the media, and like how stories can be spun and twisted. It almost has like a Gossip Girl feel to it, where it's like there's someone always watching every single step or misstep or spat argument that they have with either each other or with other people in society is being documented and published out into the world, which just adds another layer of interest to the story as a reader, because it's bigger than just the main couple. And that's what I really do like about this author, who also wrote Cry or Better Yet Beg, is that they're really good at world building beyond just the relationship between the main couple. You have the dynamic with the grandparents, the parents on both sides of the family, the ex lovers, the tabloids, the sister and brother in law, all this stuff. Everyone's viewpoints and opinions is contributing to either the success or failure of the main two as a couple. I love the female lead. The male lead, I mean, he's just Ken, whatever. The way that he behaves, it's not so much red flaggish in the sense of like she's in active danger. I don't get that type of vibe from it, but it's more like he has this energy of this like 1950s husband, where it's like, I give you food, I give you shelter. What more could you ask for? When it's like she's really trying to make a genuine connection with him. I love how gentle and sweet and just wholesome she is. She's thrown into a world where she's coming from a place of being naive, and so she's overly trusting, and then the male lead has been burned in the past, so he's the opposite. He's coming in with his guard just way up, and from his side of it, he can't even break down his own barriers enough to see that she's actually a genuine person and genuinely trying to connect. So he's keeping things at a very surface level, and of course that's going to boil into conflict. Overall, I think it's a really good story. I'm always hooked on it. I'm always keeping up to date on all the new releases. I'm trying not to read the novel, because the thing is, like, if I read the novel, it ruins the comic for me, because I'll just compare it to the source. I'm trying to hold off. I'm trying not to, sneak ahead, but it's very challenging. The next story is Semantic Error. And you might be thinking, if you know about this series, he's not that bad in comparison to some of the other stories you shared. And he's not. That's what really gets you, though. It's the yellow flags, quote unquote, that really, at least for me, they really hit different, because you know somebody like this. Essentially, the premise of Semantic Error, if you don't know, two classmates get assigned to work on a project together. One of the classmates, the male lead, decides he doesn't feel like he needs to show up and everyone else can pull his weight. And so when the protagonist refuses to do that and refuses to play along, he comes up and has big old temper tantrum, and he's upset that this, nerdy kid didn't just do the project for him. And he thinks he's in the right. That's what's crazy, is he thinks he's in the right, to the point where he goes out of his way to make this kid's life a living hell. Anyone who meets the protagonist can tell that he's a little bit different, that he's very, very likely on the spectrum. So, what he does is he goes out of his way to figure out just the perfect recipe to bully for weeks. And somehow it's still funny, it's still fluffy, it's still cute, you still root for them. It's a really well written story, but in terms of, the problematic nature, you can't bypass the bullying kids on the spectrum. Like, that's wild. And then, not to mention, he still thinks he's right. Like, the male lead, to the very end, start to finish, he still thinks that he was in the right and that the project should have been done on his behalf. The good thing is, the protagonist of this series, he has a strong personality himself. So he's not just going to lay down and take it, he's going to speak up too. It's a really fun story, a really good back and forth. But yeah, the bullying is a lot. Up next is a series called Birdcage. Now, Birdcage has a lot going on. It's about two boys who kind of grew up together, but they're from different worlds. There was a definite wealth gap between them. And so their dynamic is very, very tilted, very twisted and obsessive. What I love about this series, more than the actual dynamic between the characters, is the vibe, because the vibe is like Oron High School Host Club, but make it dark, make it twisted, and make it moderately more gay. The atmosphere of Birdcage is very dark academia, in the sense of you're in this really ritzy private school and there's just something dark lying beneath the surface, permeating in a way that can't be articulated but can only be sensed. And then the actions of the characters reflect that as well. It's very prim and proper while simultaneously feral, very Lord of the Flies undertones. And here's another thing: if you want a redeemable male lead, look away. This one goes dark, and I'm talking abduction, confinement, amongst other things. The male lead in this series could be summarized as dangerous, psychotic, narcissistic. If you're looking for the archangel of redemption to make an appearance in these series, you got another thing coming, because she will not be arriving.
Take a look around. Do you see her anywhere? News flash. You're not gonna.
If you don't like deep toxicity, just look away. Don't even click it. Don't even bother. Well, that's all I have for today for problematic webtoons that I'm obsessed with. If you have any of your own, please share them in the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.